If Google Earth was available in 1966, the Geological Society of America would never have adopted plate tectonics. Since 1966, we have all been taught plate tectonics in the schoolhouse. Today, we're going to cover just a few of the problems with plate tectonics. This includes the fact that continents do not fit on a globe. The seafloor does not move. The mid-ocean ridges are tensile cracks. The seafloor is not like a treadmill. Why the trenches are curved. The Pacific continent collapsed. Seamounts have not filled in the trenches. Trenches came after the seamounts. Magma is compressible, negating the treadmill concept. Conflicting spreading centers produce no evidence. Finally, comments by a man who spent most of his life secretly mapping the ocean floor for the Navy. He used to be devoted to plate tectonics, but the evidence changed his mind. Whether it is called Valbara, Rodinia, Gondwana, or Pangaea, evidence is mounting that the supercontinent in the past used to be vastly larger than all of these. The surface continents did split apart, but did you know they had to shrink Africa by 35% and leave out Central America just to get them to fit for the textbooks? Here's how the continents really fit on a sphere. Oops. We're beginning to realize the original continents may have looked something like this. Scientists theorize that since the continents moved, and moved they did, the seafloors must be moving as well. They believe this seafloor movement is caused by magma rising from and sinking toward the center of the Earth, forming a conveyor belt-like system. The rising magma formed the mid-ocean ridges, they say, and the magma is pushing the seafloor apart. If magma is supposed to be coming up through the mid-ocean ridges and pushing the seafloor apart, wouldn't we see lava domes on top of the ridges? And wouldn't the cracks be filled with lava? Here is the mid-Atlantic ridge above the water in Iceland. Is this filled with a volcanic lava dome, or is it just a crack? Doesn't it make more sense that an imbalance of forces caused these tensile cracks? What do I mean? Let's see. The granite continents were originally stretched over the basalt, and the forces were balanced. They were in equilibrium. When the continents split and snapped apart, the tremendous weight of the continents was removed above the underlying basalt. The tremendous imbalance of force created caused the basalt to rupture upward and outward. This formed what we know as tensile cracks. If lava was pushing the seafloor apart, then why are there fracture zone cracks perpendicular to the ridge? They should only be parallel. For more than 4,000 years, sediments, not lava, partially filled in these cracks. Tensile cracks on a sphere explains these observations. Spreading does not. With very limited data and the discovery of a tiny portion of the mid-Atlantic ridge, Dr. Robert Dietz came up with the term seafloor spreading in 1961. Since Iceland is the only place where the mid-Atlantic ridge is above water and easily observable and measurable, we find that there is no seafloor spreading. Even the limited GPS satellite data for the seafloor is within the margin of error of the instrument. After a year's worth of Thursday meetings over coffee, as reported by Bob Enyart of Real Science Radio, Dr. Dietz admitted to Dr. Walt Brown that there was no conclusive evidence that the seafloor was spreading. Plate tectonics says the seafloor moves like a treadmill. Have you ever noticed a treadmill? Both ends are parallel and the same width. What if the ends of the treadmill were curved like the Marianas Trench? We would also see buckling of the seafloor. But the real edges of the trenches are curved and the seafloor is still smooth. What would cause these curves in the trench area? If a part of a sphere collapses, it creates arcs. Let's try an experiment. Take a ping pong ball and poke a small hole in it to let the air out. Then squish the ping pong ball in about a third. Now take a marker and outline the trench area, not the surface. What do you see? we see these same arcs surrounding the Pacific Ocean. They are indeed finding sunken continents in the Pacific Ocean and the Indian Ocean. Zealandia is just one of the sunken continents they have found east of Australia. So, is the seafloor really moving? Plate tectonics say the vast Pacific seafloor, filled with over 40,000 seamounts, is slowly moving to the west and being swallowed up by the deep trenches just east of Asia. That means that after millions and millions of years of movement, numerous seamounts should have fallen into the trenches. There should be remnants of the seamounts in those trenches. In fact, the number of seamounts remaining and filling in the trenches should tell us how long and how fast this has been happening. And in fact, it does. There is not one seamount remnant in any trench. Look at this image from Google Earth. The trench cracks have actually split the seamounts. Seamount halves are on both sides of the trench. This implies that the seamounts were present before the trench formed, and that the seafloor is not moving. Magma is not a liquid. It is compressible. As you go deeper into the earth, the pressure increases. Below the 220-mile deep crossover depth, magma compresses to half its volume and sinks toward the core. As it sinks, it compresses even more and more and becomes denser and denser. This magma cannot rise and is much denser than the surrounding rock. The conveyor belt theory is now underwater. If two spreading centers are spreading toward the same point, why isn't there a rise or a depression at the target point? Why isn't there a mountain or a trench? One U.S. scientist, Christian Smoot, an evolutionist, spent 32 years precisely mapping the ocean floor. The Navy wanted to keep its submarines from running into the underwater mountains. Smoot's book, Tectonic Globaloney, Closing Arguments, from Arthur House Press in 2012, describes for the layman discoveries on the seafloor that falsify plate tectonics. Smoot, a veteran of 67 cruise missions, was responsible for declassifying some of this data for use outside of the U.S. Navy. He says he devoutly believed the plate tectonic theory, but now knows it is baloney or tectonic globaloney. Based on features he sees on the ocean floor, Smoot concludes that subduction does not occur and the seafloor is not spreading. He says 45 years after the synthesis of plate tectonic hypothesis, much newer and better information has been gathered by the seagoers of the world. Contrary to popular opinion among Earth scientists, the purveyors of plate tectonics are the present-day snake oil salesmen. Plate tectonics is fraught with misinformation and misconceptions. It is in need of a massive makeover, he says. Mid-ocean ridge spreading does not occur universally, especially in Iceland and the North Pacific Basin. Deep earthquakes do not define a descending slab. In fact, they do not even occur in most places along the trenches. Therefore, subduction does not occur. Fracture zones, distorted in National Geographic maps in a way that supports plate tectonics rather than showing the direction of seafloor spreading, leaves nothing more than a pattern of at least 4 different directions on the ocean floor as they intersect in a random fashion. Plate tectonics does not work, he says. If you want to see more, check out additional information on my channel or Walt Brown's website, or Brian Nichols' YouTube channel, or Bob Enyart's website, or one of Christian Smoot's books.